Layla was born into a family of fairy Earls. Her childhood was, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly relaxed, but compared to what came later, sure, we'll call it that. Unfortunately, after her mother died of illness, things took a sharp turn when it was discovered that Layla had absolutely zero magical gifts whatsoever. Zero. Nada. Zilch. In an Earl fairy family, a clan known for producing people with healing powers, this was basically like being born without opposable thumbs. Inconvenient, embarrassing, and frankly baffling. Her dad, desperate not to lose the family's precious gift, remarried. The new stepmom? Let's just say she wasn't exactly royalty material. Low status, minimal magic. But hey, at least she had some healing potential. So they crossed their fingers and possibly bloodlines, hoping for miracles. Miracles arrived in the form of two half-brothers who could heal, one of whom, Toby, could also do magic tricks, and Emma, the golden child from Dad and Stepmom 2.0, who was basically born holding a glowing stethoscope. Meanwhile, poor Layla became less family heir and more unwanted extra. Her position dropped so low, she made the servants look like CEOs. Her brothers and sister treated her like a doll, or rather, a defective toy no one wants to play with anymore. Her father and stepmom didn't care either. If anything, they seemed to think she might spontaneously combust if given too much attention. Spoiler alert, she did not. Now, magic exists in this world, but only a few possess it, and Layla's siblings are basically the Hogwarts elite among them. Then, tragedy struck again, because apparently life loves piling misery onto Layla. Her stepmom passed away early. But the abuse train kept chugging along. Layla got hand-me-down clothes from former maids. They didn't even fit properly because apparently sewing lessons were canceled due to budget cuts. Food? Meh, she got scraps. Honestly, Layla lived her life at rock bottom, which is impressive considering how far down you have to dig to find rock bottom in the first place. But then, at the ripe old age of 12, something unexpected happened. Layla saw a mysterious man in a mask wandering around the garden. He approached her and apologized for losing sight of the mansion entrance. This guy, a literal stranger, called her Mady. Mady? Can you imagine? Layla's heart raced faster than a caffeinated rabbit. No one had ever called her Mady before. Ever. It was glorious. When he noticed the wreath Layla had woven, he picked it up and gently placed it on her head, saying she'd forgotten it. Cue internal fanfare. Layla felt like Cinderella herself, except instead of glass slippers, she had a slightly lopsided flower crown. For the first time in forever, someone treated her kindly. She even thought maybe, just maybe, she was secretly a princess from a fairy tale. Ah, sweet delusions. The man introduced himself as Alan Stanley. Layla thought his name sounded cooler than anything she'd ever heard, and his voice, smooth enough to sell bottled air. Naturally, she assumed he must be some kind of soldier or warrior dude, given his sturdy build and commanding presence. Surely, he was here visiting her father or something important like that. She led him back to the mansion entrance, and Alan thanked her warmly, saying she'd been a big help. Layla wanted to thank him for making her feel like a human being for once, but alas, manners dictated she keep that tidbit to herself. Instead, she awkwardly stood there wondering if this moment counted as happiness. Alan asked if she was afraid of him, and Layla blinked. Afraid? Of this guy who just crowned her with flowers and acted like she mattered? Nope, not even a little bit. Alan smiled and said he hoped they'd meet again. Layla nodded enthusiastically, thinking, yes, please come back and validate my existence regularly. But fate, being the cruel joker it is, decided to ruin everything immediately. As soon as Alan left, her brothers appeared. One of them spotted the wreath and demanded to know if she'd made it. Daryl declared that all she was allowed to do was pull weeds and obey orders. Suddenly, he yanked the wreath off her head and stomped on it. Drama queen much? Layla shielded the remains of her beloved wreath, begging him to stop. When the brothers realized she was crying, they rolled their eyes and declared she was stupid. Toby muttered something about how tattered reeds suited her better anyway. Classic sibling love right there. Fast forward 2 years, and guess what? Mr. Masked Marvel Allen started popping by the fairy house occasionally. Turns out he was there for therapy sessions with Emma, who has the magical equivalent of a medical degree. One day, Allen found Layla pulling weeds again. Always a gentleman, he offered to help. Layla, ever the optimist, told him it was fine and that he shouldn't get dirty. Spoiler, he probably could have handled dirt better than her entire family combined. Instead, she asked him to tell her about his accomplishments. Because why not ask a battle-hardened warrior to recount his greatest hits while you sit knee-deep in dandelions? Allen launched into tales of military exploits against neighboring states. Layla listened intently, though honestly, hearing about mass casualties wasn't exactly her cup of tea. Still, she liked his stories because, well, he was nice to her. Imagine that. A kind person in her life? Groundbreaking. At one point, Allen removed his mask to reveal a cursed stain on his face. Layla stared at it, unfazed. Did she feel disgust? Fear? Nope. Just admiration for how polite and awesome he was. Allen seemed surprised, calling her the kind one. Layla internally swooned. If kindness were a currency, this guy would be rolling in gold bars. Later that night, Layla overheard Emma refusing to heal Allen. Healing involves exchanging bodily fluids, aka spending the night together, and apparently, Emma wasn't into creepy masked men. Go figure. Layla couldn't help but feel sad. If she had Emma's gift, she'd heal Allen in a heartbeat, even if it meant dealing with awkward morning after small talk. Thinking back, Layla remembered her mom telling her she was like a flower bud destined to bloom someday. Sweet sentiment, but Layla couldn't help wondering why this memory chose now to resurface. A week later, Allen returned. Determined to do something for him, Layla picked a bouquet of flowers. Sure, it wasn't exactly curing curses or saving kingdoms, but hey, it was the thought that counts, right? Unfortunately, as she approached him, she tripped and scraped her leg. Blood everywhere. Great job, Layla to Allen freaked out. Like full-on meltdown mode. He started whispering about killing enemies and strangling her. Yikes. Layla quickly realized the curse controlling him wasn't just skin deep, it was eating him alive. Sadness washed over her. If only she had healing powers, she could save him. Alas, she was stuck being powerless yet again. Tears fell onto Allen's hand, snapping him out of it. He apologized profusely, but Layla waved it off. No need to apologize, she said. I'm fine. Glad you're okay too. The guy put his head down and asked why she was so kind to him when he was trying to hurt her. Layla realized his voice was shaking, and honestly, it sounded like he was about to cry. Allen admitted that he was cursed and hated himself for it. He had decided to distance himself from people to avoid hurting anyone until the curse was lifted. But apparently, even that plan failed because here he was taking advantage of Layla's kindness. Allen said he'd rather not see her again, but Layla wasn't having any of that nonsense. I'm fine, she insisted, so don't say things like that. I'll be lonely if I don't see you again. Because who needs logic when you've got feelings? She begged him to keep visiting, and Allen sighed, saying she was the one person he didn't want to hurt. Layla thought maybe his kindness stemmed from pity. After all, everyone else in the house treated her like yesterday's leftovers. Still, despite herself, she couldn't help but feel drawn to him that Allen apologized one last time and vowed never to appear at the house again. And just like that, Layla decided to lock away this unrequited love deep in her heart for life. Romantic? Sure. Heartbreaking? Absolutely. But hey, at least she now had something to write angsty poetry about. 2 years passed, and Layla was still mooning over Mr. Allen like a lovesick puppy. At this point, Toby wandered in her life again. Lately, he'd been showing up more often to banter with her, which, let's be real, probably meant making fun of her wardrobe or lack thereof. This time, though, Toby hit her with an unexpected question. Have you ever thought about wanting to live a different life? Turns out, Toby had a proposition for her. He was set to marry the daughter of some respectable family, because of course he was, but he offered Layla the prestigious position of, wait for it, his mistress.
Are you the Lulu?
Classy, right? Toby explained that she'd have certain rights as his side piece, which is just a fancy way of saying she'd get slightly better scraps than usual. Layla blinked. Did he really think she'd jump at this offer? Before she could process what was happening, Toby shoved her to the ground and started monologuing about how glorious her body was. Apparently, it was a waste to treat such beauty like a mere maid. Gee, thanks for noticing, Toby. He went on to suggest casting a charm spell on her so she'd fall madly in love with him. Classic move. But Layla wasn't falling for it, literally or figuratively. Her heart belonged to Mr. Allen. Thank you very much. To her relief, the charm spell backfired, likely due to the curse reflecting it. Hooray for small miracles. Layla felt vindicated knowing her feelings for Allen hadn't faded, even if they were tragically one-sided. Just then, Emma and Dalla showed up, wondering what all the commotion was about. Toby, ever the drama king, started screaming that Layla had tried to seduce him. Dalla grabbed her and demanded answers. Were you really trying to throw yourself at him? When Toby accused Layla of attempting to use her body to win him over, she denied everything. Of course, no one believed her. Emma laughed cruelly, suggesting Layla take up prostitution since she clearly had no powers to offer otherwise. Dalla chimed in, saying it suited someone useless like her. Ouch! Despite their cruelty, Layla stayed strong. She knew she hadn't done anything wrong, and besides, thinking of Mr. Allen kept her grounded. That tiny spark of hope was her only treasure. Still, she couldn't shake the memory of that strange magical light earlier. What was that anyway? A few more years passed, and one day, Layla's father dropped a bombshell. There was a marriage proposal. The suitor? A marquee. Apparently, it was odd but fitting since they were Earls. It made sense politically. Layla, naturally, had zero freedom to refuse. Her father reminded her that raising her hadn't exactly been cheap, so she owed him this favor. Subtle, Dad. Real subtle. Emma chimed in, gleefully pointing out that the marquee was rumored to be an ugly monster. He's perfect for you, she sneered. A creepy, heartless man just like you. Dalla agreed, joking that Layla would serve best as a toy for the marquee. Charming family dynamics, truly. Layla didn't care who this monster was. Forgetting Mr. Allen and becoming someone's wife willy-nilly seemed impossible. Her father informed her that the marquee would arrive in a week and instructed her to prepare. Oh, and by prepare, he meant leave empty-handed since, according to Toby, she owned nothing worth taking anyway. As the week dragged on, Layla resigned herself to the fact that her first love had officially come to an end. But fate, being the unpredictable joker is, threw her a curveball. On the day the marquee arrived, guess who showed up instead? None other than Allen Stanley himself. Talk about timing. Allen confessed that he had never stopped waiting for this day, and neither had Layla. He promised to make her happy for the rest of her life. Sure, it might have been out of pity or obligation, but Layla didn't care. If this was her chance to stay by Mr. Allen's side, she'd take it. Even if their marriage wasn't based on passion, she swore to love him forever. And just like that, Allen whisked her away from her toxic family. Cue dramatic exit music. When they arrived at his mansion, Layla was awestruck. It was huge, luxurious, and frankly intimidating. As they entered, maids greeted them warmly, and Allen assured her that this was now her home. Layla felt a pang of sadness, wondering if Allen had only chosen her out of guilt. Was it pity? Probably. But she resolved to try her hardest not to get kicked out anytime soon. One of the maids introduced herself as Ada. She offered to help Layla settle in and promised to answer any questions. Allen, ever the gentleman, asked Ada to freshen up Layla's appearance before lunch. Ada reassured Layla that things would be different here. No more neglect or hunger. We'll transform you so thoroughly, the master will shudder, Ada declared confidently. Layla dreamed of looking beautiful enough to stand beside Allen, though she doubted it would happen. Later, when Layla looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Ada gushed about how stunning she looked, repeating endlessly that Layla was beautiful. The maid encouraged her to smile, claiming it made a person prettier than any makeup could. With a newfound confidence and a lot of blushing, Layla followed Ada to meet Alan. When Alan saw her, his reaction said all. His affectionate smiles spoke volumes, even if he didn't say a word. Layla knew their marriage was built on pity, but she couldn't deny the flutter in her chest. During dinner, Layla marveled at the feast before her. Fish, meat, soft bread. It was a far cry from the vegetable scraps she used to nibble on. Alan watched her quietly, seemingly aware of how little she'd eaten growing up. Layla struggled to relax, unsure why Alan wasn't speaking. Awkward silences are never fun. Folks, finally, Alan broke the ice. He explained that he planned to announce their marriage to the king and hold a ceremony at the mansion. Apologizing for rushing things, he asked if Layla minded waiting a bit longer. Surprised, Layla hesitated but ultimately nodded. Alan reassured her that she was officially his wife. All formalities completed. There was no going back to the fairy house now, thought Alan, then called the maid and ordered her to lead Layla to her room. Gently, he told her that while she was his wife, he wouldn't touch her until after the official ceremony. Layla was stunned. Even though she was the kind of person who could easily be mistreated, Alan treated her with respect. Now that Layla had developed feelings for Alan, even if those feelings weren't mutual, she was determined to stay by his side for as long as possible. She wanted to be useful to him in any way she could. At that moment, she revealed something shocking. She claimed to have healing powers too. Layla explained how one day, when her brother Toby had attempted to molest her, she managed to ward off his spell. That's when it hit her. The dormant ability within her had awakened. She recalled her late mother's words. "You are a flower that blooms when it loves and is loved." Layla realized that perhaps this power blossomed because she loved Mr. Allen with all her heart. When she ran her hand over a wounded area, a mark appeared on her chest, a crest similar to Emma's. It was heatless, yet incredibly effective. In the blink of an eye, the pain vanished. To test it further, she intentionally wounded herself again and healed it just as quickly. Layla knew better than to tell her fairy family about this newfound ability. They'd exploit her without hesitation. So she kept quiet. Instead, she vowed to use her gift solely for Alan's benefit. When she told him about it, Alan hugged her tightly and asked if she understood exactly what it meant to heal someone. Did she know physical contact was required? Layla nodded confidently. "Of course I do," she said. "That's why I told you." Alan gently placed her on the bed and hesitated, asking if she minded going through with it. He admitted he felt guilty forcing her into such an arrangement, but promised to be gentle. From that night onward, their relationship deepened physically, though Layla knew it wasn't out of love. It was purely for the sake of healing him. Still, she reasoned that even if it was just sympathy driving his actions, she'd do her best to help him however she could. One day, Alan announced he was leaving to see the king and would return by nightfall. Before he left, Layla shyly requested flower seeds. Alan raised an eyebrow, surprised by the sudden request. Layla explained that flowers didn't grow naturally in the garden, so she wanted to plant some herself. Alan chuckled softly, saying, "I don't need flowers here. I have you now." Still, he promised to look for them later and ordered the maid to contact the gardener. As he left, he reminded Layla to take care of herself. Meanwhile, Layla busied herself around the mansion. She decided to take down the curtains, much to the maid Ada's confusion. "You don't need to do chores like that," Ada protested. But Layla insisted, explaining that she wanted the mansion to feel bright and comfortable for Mr. Allen. The current drapes were too dark, casting gloomy shadows everywhere. Ada agreed, noting that the landlord never cared much about decorations anyway. Together, they planned to change the curtains throughout the house according to Layla's preferences. When the gardeners arrived, Layla gave detailed instructions. She wanted the trees trimmed neatly so no branches stuck out, ensuring sunlight could pour freely onto the mansion. She also joined in removing weeds alongside them. The gardeners were taken aback, insisting this work wasn't fitting for a mistress like her. But Layla laughed it off, saying she didn't mind getting her hands dirty. "This place should feel like a sunny meadow," she declared. Ada later reported Layla's efforts to Alan upon his return. "She stopped us from stopping her," Ada joked. She insisted on working alongside the gardeners. Alan listened quietly, then smiled faintly. When he saw Layla, he scolded her lightly, reminding her she no longer had to endure the hardships she faced at the fairy house. "That's why I brought you here," he said firmly. Layla blushed, realizing how much he truly cared. She showed him the progress in the garden and promised to grow flowers he'd love. Alan grinned, remembering their first meeting years ago. "The seeds will arrive soon," he assured her, "and I'll weave you another wreath." Layla couldn't believe he still remembered that little detail from so long ago. Slowly but surely, the mansion grew brighter, thanks to her efforts. Ada noticed Alan smiling more often these days. "Before, I'd often catch him looking gloomy in those dark rooms," she told Layla. "But now, his expression has softened. He looks at you with affection." Layla wondered if Ada's words were trustworthy, but deep down, she hoped they were true. She wanted to repay Alan for saving her, in whatever small ways she could. The day of the marriage ceremony finally arrived. Layla nervously asked Alan if it was okay that there were no guests. He reassured her, explaining that with the curse, he distanced himself from everyone else. Now, only the household staff remained close to him. Hearing this, Layla felt a pang of sadness. She took his hand and promised to always be by his side. "I swear it," she said earnestly. The priest conducted the ceremony, asking both Alan and Layla if they swore to support each other in sickness and in health. They answered affirmatively, and divine blessings descended upon them, a sign of hope for their future together. Later that evening, Alan carried Layla to their bedroom. "You're so beautiful," he murmured, pulling her close. "It feels like I can't control myself." Layla giggled nervously, covering her face. "It's embarrassing," she squeaked. Now they were husband and wife. Layla reflected on their union. Yes, it might have been based on sympathy, but she was happy. For her, this was a new life, one where she aimed to make Alan's life brighter and more fulfilling. In the past, a neighboring country, Dasa, targeted Kayla's fertile lands. The young king, only slightly younger than Alan, became the focal point of conflict. Nicknamed Monster due to his ruthlessness, Alan lived up to the title during battles, but not always in the way people expected. During one skirmish, an unknown enemy attempted to curse the king. Without hesitation, Alan stepped forward, intercepting the curse meant for the monarch. "How dare you try to curse our king?" he bellowed, slaying the attacker instantly. However, the curse transferred to Alan instead, coursing violently through his body. Overwhelmed, he pushed the king away, shouting, "Stay back!" Alan fought wildly, losing sight of friend or foe. All he could do was distance himself before the curse consumed him entirely.